At one point, I was like 35 grand in debt trying to find something that worked. And I got to a point right around the time I met my husband where I was like, I think this is my last chance. Like, I can't continue to just hemorrhage money and I can't continue to just throw effort and time at publishing and not actually make an income from it. I went from making $100 a month if I was lucky to consistently making 2 grand a month or more. Overnight. It was bananas.
What if I told you that an author had published 26 books, won a national award, spent years running ads, doing conventions, and learning everything she could about the business, and was still only making $100 a month? She was $35,000 in debt and ready to walk away from writing for good. That might be a familiar story to many of you because I think there are a lot of us out there who have a number of books published but are not making the income level that we hope to be making. Well, that's exactly what happened to today's guest, Usher Evans. In this conversation, she breaks down what she did wrong for nearly a decade and then what she finally did right. She made one pivot that turned her entire career around. She also talks about how she spots exactly why a book isn't selling, how she runs her ads, and how she writes 7 to 8 books a year in only 4 hours a day. In this conversation, I talked to her about what she finally did right, and it came down to one simple pivot that turned her entire career around. The one thing that you need to change about your business, and it's not writing more books. So whether you're just getting started or you've been at this for years and wondering what you're missing, stick around. This might be the thing that changes how you're approaching your author business. I'm Herman Stewart-Nagel, and this is the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. Before we get into today's conversation, I just want to take a minute to talk to you about getting paid and paying for services as an author. If you've published a book, you know that there are a number of services involved that you have to pay for. And those services, if you're self-published, don't all come from the same place. For example, I recently had to pay for my cover designer in US dollars, for my map in British pounds, and for my artwork in euros. And guess what? I'm Canadian, so my main bank account is in Canadian dollars. Never mind that I get paid from Amazon in pounds, euros, US dollars, Canadian dollars, all depending on where the reader lives, which, don't get me wrong, is an amazing problem to have. I absolutely love that my books are being purchased around the world. But guess what? If you're converting currencies either to or from a service member, you're losing money on fees, both to your bank, to the credit card issuer, to PayPal, to whoever you might be paying or receiving payments from. That's why I use a service called Wise. Wise is one of the sponsors of today's show, but I have been using Wise for years because Wise is a service that is designed specifically for people who deal with international payments. Whether you're receiving payments or paying for service in currencies other than your own, Wise has the best exchange rates that I've been able to find on the market. You can use Wise to send international transfers to up to 80 different countries directly from one bank account to another. So when I had my map designed, I paid in euros using Wise. For being a listener of the show, you'll get a free international transfer of up to 800 Canadian dollars. And at today's rate, that's just over 550 US dollars. So please click on the description in the comments below or head to www.pintandportal.com/deals to get started. Thank you so much. And now let's get on with the interview. Usher Evans. Sush, welcome to the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. We are going to be talking about a wide range of things because you've been doing this for a while. You've seen the ups and downs, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say and hear a bit more about your author career and what's brought you to where you are today. So welcome here.
Absolutely. There have been a lot more downs than ups, but I'm happy we are up at the moment. So that's good.
Yes, that's excellent. And I think it's important too for us to hear about the downs because I think a lot of the times we see people posting numbers, which you had done at the end of the year, which is very exciting to see. And it's always encouraging to see the goal of where people are at. And sometimes if you just started following an author, you don't see all of the downs that led to those ups. So I think that is a very important thing to talk about. And just because you have ups doesn't mean you don't have downs at the same time.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And sometimes they
you know,
happen together.
Exactly, exactly. So we're going to talk about that too. Um,
Hmm.
but first, what I would like to know from you is for those who are at the beginning of their author journey, what is something or what is one thing that you would recommend that they need to do to be successful?
So I think the first thing they need to do is define what success means to them.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is everybody has different goals, right? So some
Yeah.
people just want to publish a book and then that's all they want to do and that's all they care about. And they just want to see their book up on Amazon, maybe sell 3 copies, and they are totally great. They're totally happy. That
Hmm.
is one set of advice I'd give.
Yeah.
And that's more technical of how exactly do you upload, whatever. And then there are people that want to make this a career. They want longevity. They want to be, to be that 6-figure author. They want to be successful monetarily and perhaps quit their day job, whatever. That is an entirely different set of advice that I would give. And for that subset of individuals, which is probably what we're talking about, I would say number one thing you need to do is understand your genre really, 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 really well. This is something you need to do before you even put pen to paper. So, for example, I just wrote a romantasy. I'm trying to hit on that genre trend. And I spent about, let's say, 6, 7, 8 months before I actually put pen to paper. Of course, it was like rolling around in my head and I really, really, really wanted to write it, but I had other things in the queue ahead of it. But I spent about 6, 7 months reading all the romantasies that were hitting the bestseller list. Quicksilver, gosh, I'm running a blank right now. All of them, like all the Quicksilvers and the Trial of
The
the Sun
fourth wing and
Queen.
all those. Yeah.
Yeah, Fourth Wing, all of those, just to see what's selling. And that's how I knew when I wrote my book that it probably wasn't going to sell because it didn't hit on those things. But hope springs eternal, and so I went with it anyway. Because sometimes you find the story is the story, right? And you can try to tweak and maneuver and change and shift and add things in. But this story did not ask for a main character who's a morally gray, whatever. It asked for someone who's softer and kinder and the complete polar opposite of, his ancestor, basically. And so that knowing that going in helps you cultivate your product and your strategy. And like, I knew I was going to be targeting a small subset of romantasy readers who preferred this character from Quicksilver over this character from Quicksilver. And so that gives you kind of a baseline to move towards. And that's the first thing I would say is just spend all your time reading what's selling in your genre and understand why it's selling. Figure out what the common themes are. Figure out what the common tropes are. Don't shy away from tropes. Don't pretend like you don't know what a trope is. That is the number one thing that I see with new authors. Like, I just write what I want to write and I don't like tropes. Like, you write tropes. You just don't know it yet.
Right. Yes.
They're in every book.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, and and I think, if you don't know what those tropes are, then you need to figure that out so that even if you're not writing them, that you know that you're not, right? I really love that you said that you studied the genre, figured out what was selling, and then you wrote something else because I think that's
Hmm.
hilarious. And that's completely,
Yeah,
but then
well,
you know what you're doing different. At least you're going into it knowing, right?
yes.
Because
And
I've
like,
definitely done that.
yeah, I mean, and I've done that pretty much my entire career. I wrote an urban fantasy that centered on a man instead of a woman, a male demon hunter instead of a woman. And the woman, this is again very similar to Wretched Curse. The woman's the immortal, shadow mommy, whatever. I was writing shadow mommies before they were cool, and so kind of similar to that, you sort of going in, and then the one time I will say this, the one time that I actually adhered to genre standards, I made 6 figures. So there you go. Maybe I should do that more often. Because what I did for Bev is this was back in 2023, and Legends and Lattes was just coming out on the scene. And I was looking at it and I was like, I could do something like that. Like, that seems kind of fun. And so what I ended up doing, sort of stupidly, I guess, is I somehow veered into cozy mystery territory. And I looked at a cozy mystery beat and I said, okay, what is in a cozy mystery beat? And I looked at it and I saw, okay, right around this point, we're going to reveal the culprit, right around this point. And I still use this template to this day. All of the cozy fantasy books that I write are 60,000 words or 22 chapters. Chapter 4, the inciting event happens at the end of chapter 21. We find out who the culprit is, and then we end things at chapter 22. And that's
Right.
just standard.
Yeah.
And that gives predictability, and that is the cozy mystery genre, is it's very predictable and sort of repetitive beats. So that, and so sticking to the genre conventions allowed me, of course, to be successful. And I think timing too was a big part of that.
Right. And so I spent about 20 minutes looking for a thread post that you had posted, only to find out it was actually a reel, which is why I couldn't find it. But in that reel, which read very much like a thread post, which is why I
Yeah.
was looking at your threads, you had said the secret to becoming a six-figure author is writing a good book with a good hook at the right time.
Yes.
And it worked as a reel because then you said dodges tomatoes. So, but
Yes.
obviously, based on what you said, there was more to it than that. But can you
Yes.
talk, I guess, a little bit more about that? Because, and I guess for those listeners who don't know your background in writing, maybe
Hmm.
let's take a step back and tell us a little bit before, because you're talking, Bev, who you referenced, you're talking about your Weary Dragon Inn series, which is your
Yes.
probably your best known cozy fantasy series.
Hmm.
But that was definitely not your first publication.
No, that was my 28th, I think, something like that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
lost count. So, just in a nutshell, I've been publishing for 12 years this year. My first was just kind of, so my story begins. My story begins. I had just gotten out of a relationship with a guy. I thought I was going to marry him. I did not. Thank God I did not. And then I was at therapy and she told me, I told her, I was like, I feel like I have like this part of me that wants to get out. And I feel like there's just two halves of me that are just fighting all the time. And she's like, well, what are their names? And I said, well, and then she said, well, have this other half of you say what she wants and don't interrupt her and don't do it. And I said, okay, fine. So we're walking home and I go, okay, Sunny, because that's her name, Sunny. What do you want? And she goes, I want to publish a book. I said, okay, all right, you got it. We got Razia. We got my Space Pirate Bounty Hunter series, reasonably book shaped. We just need to go through it again and edit it, and we will self-publish it. It sold nothing, but it opened up a bunch of doors for me to be like, I don't have to do this Pentagon job anymore. I can move home. I can sell everything I own. I can like flip houses with my dad for a little bit. I can just do something different. And so I moved
Right.
home. I sold everything I owned, including my house. I moved home and just started building. And I ended up cobbling together a life and an income. And I will say I'm very privileged. I was able to move in with my parents for a bit. I did own a house down here and then I sold it and used that money to flip and I lived with my parents. So lots of support down here, which I know is not the case for everybody. So I do not recommend just blowing up your life. Like that is not my recommendation. That is just my journey.
Right.
Um,
That's not the
and
path
it,
to author success
no,
necessarily, is
no, no,
blowing
no.
up your life and going. Yeah.
Because at one point I was like 35 grand in debt trying to find something that worked. And I got to a point right around the time I met my husband where I was sort of getting a little bit of traction. I had written this young adult epic fantasy called City of Vales that actually won. It was named the runner-up of the Indie Author Projects, which is a big contest here in the US. The Indie Author Project National Book of the Year. So it was like the runner-up. It was like I got an email. It was like, you're neck and neck with Jackie. And we gave it to Jackie, but we want to let you know you were like definitely like right up there next to her. And I was like, yeah. And so that one was actually doing pretty well. And then
Hmm.
and then TikTok took off and everybody left YA and my
Yeah.
book sales tanked. And so last year I was kind of at this moment of like, I need to like think about my life here. Okay. Or not last year, when I was getting ready to start writing Bev, I was like, I think this is my last chance. Like I can't continue to just hemorrhage money and I can't continue to just throw effort and time at publishing and not actually make an income from it.
Right.
And so I ran the Kickstarter. I was on bed rest with my son. I was pregnant and it just blew up. And then I launched it in September and I went from making $100 a month if I was lucky to consistently making 2 grand a month or more
Nice.
overnight. It was
And
bananas.
that's on that one, just on the first book. You start
One
with
book.
the one
And
book.
then I ended up
Yeah.
rapid releasing the first 3 books. So it was boom, boom, boom. And then what really has made the difference for me is box sets. So the great thing about the Weary Dragon Inn series is that it's 10 books. So I can do 1 through 3 volume, box set volume 1, box set volume 2, and then box set volume 3. And it gives people more options. And so like in terms of the audiobook, if you've got Audible, you're like, I can get, 1 book for 3. Let me go with this one.
Mhm.
And so that has just, been bananas, the number of people that have picked up the box sets for audiobooks. Anyway, so
Yeah.
that's how I got here. And now I
Y-
have 10 books in the Weary Dragon Inn series, and then I have 2 spin-off series that feature characters from the Weary Dragon Inn who go off and do their own adventures. One is the Pobid Perfections Bakery series, which is
Mhm.
The first 3 books are out now, and I am currently writing books 4 through 6. They'll be out later on this year. And then PJ Norris, a Firewing, he is a dragon shifter that's actually traveling the country. So it's a little bit different than Bev and Lily. And I don't know when I'm getting back to him. He hasn't quite sold as much as I would like. And I've got a couple
Right.
other projects I'm going to tackle this summer.
Cozy
So
adventures. Though, their time is coming, I hope.
yes. Well, and it also, PJ is younger. He's kind of like almost in the YA area.
Right.
And not that the books are YA, but they feel, And then the other, they're actually quite challenging because with Bev and Lily, the action takes place in like a single town, and so I can keep pulling from the characters in that single town to do adventures with. PJ and his bestie Grant are traveling the country, so every single book I have to come up with a new Pig's End and a new thing and a new
Yeah.
characters and who they
So
are
your
and what they
world,
want.
doing the
And
world building where you don't have to do
yes,
that in the original series. Yeah. Yes, it makes such a
it's not
difference.
fun.
Yeah. So I want to circle that back now to that original post, because I mean there's
Hmm.
definitely, so you had written 26 books, which I mean in and of itself, I think you got to that inflection point where you're like, it's kind of now or never, I need to figure something out. A lot of people would have walked away well before 26 books.
Yeah, well, I'm stupid, so and stupidly optimistic.
But when you hit Weird Dragon Inn, it wasn't magic. It wasn't because you necessarily were writing to the market. It just, the market kind of was at the point where you were with your writing. Is that
I
fair?
think it was
Or
actually that I intentionally chose the market.
okay.
I know that's not the fun answer. The fun answer is I just happened to write a book and then it went sell. No, I saw that Cozy Fantasy. Yeah, I saw Cozy Fantasy was selling, and I said, I'm going to do that. That
Hmm.
seems easy to me. I'm going to do that. And in fact, I put down my YA epic fantasy that still has not made any money. I'm running a Kickstarter later this year, so hopefully it will recoup all the money that it has lost, and then I can just put it away. But I put that down because I said, this is making me $100,000 a year. This has made me negative 1,000. I'm going to go do this one. And I intentionally said, I'm going to put my time, money, and energy in things that are making money and not do things that don't make me money. And again, that is a decision that you make when your goal is to make money. If your goal is just to write
Yes.
whatever you want and who cares, then do
Yes.
whatever you want.
Yes. Yeah. And I like that answer. And I say I like that answer because it means that it's not just luck, right? If someone was looking at that post, and I thought you had said luck in that post, and you hadn't, but that's how what my mind interpreted it is. I'm like, but it's not luck because you wrote 28 books before you wrote this one. But there's agency involved, right? There's like, okay,
Yes.
like you made a decision to look at what you could do instead of you could have finished that YA series as your next book,
Hmm.
and it would have been just as well as the first 3 in the series. But you didn't. You decided to pivot, and
Hmm.
I appreciate that because it does mean that somebody who has written a dozen books, there are things they can do. It's not just the will of the algorithm gods. That doesn't hurt, but
Yeah.
there's
I think it
there's
is.
definitely a targeted approach.
There's a targeted approach, and I think I would not have been so successful. And I was actually thinking about this recently because um, with my romantasy, it did not raise as much on Kickstarter as I was hoping. And I was very disappointed because I had put a lot of effort into this.
Hmm.
And what it means for me as somebody who's very busy, who has, my publishing schedule is already out into 2028 in terms of what I'm going to be working on. And that's like, 7 to 8 books a year that I'm writing out into 2028.
Which is amazing.
I have anxiety, so, I like to know where I'm going. So I have to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to take time away from these books that are paying my bills to write the second book in this romantasy, it needs to make some money and not be another failure like the rest of these back here.
Hmm.
So because I had 8-ish years of failure. I had taken lots of courses on how to run ads. I had taken lots of classes on marketing. I knew how to run Facebook ads. I knew how to run Amazon ads. I knew marketing. I knew what's working. I knew what doesn't. And let me just say, it is night and day, the difference between a book that tickles the algorithm gods and one that doesn't. Because So for my The City of Ales, which is my award-winning YA, that was the one that was doing really well, and then it tanked. And that one, I'm just throwing money at it. I'm like, come on, come on, come on. And I know it's a good book. Obviously, it won an award. And I had all of this stuff, and it just wasn't. I would like it trickles, and I would take the exact same thing I did for City of Ales and apply it to Bev, and Bev would just, I couldn't. She would just fly off the
Yeah.
shelves.
Yeah.
And so I do think, unfortunately, it is also a little bit about algorithmic whatever. And I do think that as much as timing played a part in it, and as much as I said, this looks like an emerging genre, I'm going to pivot to it, there was a little bit of luck involved in it because I was at the point where I could hop on the trend. I wasn't in the middle of writing something else. I was sort of perfectly primed. And then of course, there's the chance that you write something that is to genre and it just doesn't take off. And
And
that's a
that
thing that
happens. Yeah.
happens as well. PJ Norris, for example, the other spinoff series, hasn't done as well as Lily. And so there's there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I
Yeah.
think there is some agency to it, and you can do everything right. I think Lily's done pretty good, but she's really not done as well as Bev. Like Bev continues to just always be the bestseller.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like Bev's always number one. So Bev gets all of my money and all my advertising budget and all my focus, and she usually gets all the sales. And Lily's starting to get more focus this year because I've got 3 more books coming out, and she does okay. And then
Hmm.
PJ down here just kind of is hanging out, and we'll handle him. And like I have a couple Facebook ads running towards him and his box set and all of that, but like he's kind of just gotta make his money back before I'm gonna give him
Yeah.
any attention.
Yeah, right. Like, so there is some, like, and I totally get what you're saying because my first series is did the same thing where I threw, especially my first series, I threw like a ton of money at it and never did anything at all. But then when I started writing The Bartender Between Worlds, did not the exact same thing. So I'm like, well, I knew at least was a moderate failure and what was an epic failure.
Hmm.
So I threw out the
Yeah.
epic failures, repeated the
Yeah.
moderate failures, and those
Yes.
became like moderate successes. And then, Kickstarter was a different animal altogether. But the same things worked, but I think is because that book was more of what the market wanted than a YA dystopian series during COVID that nobody wanted. And so like it's partially algorithm, but it's algorithm because that's what people were looking for at the time or not looking
Exactly.
for, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've noticed that the cozy landscape is shifting more towards cozy romantasy. That seems to
Yes.
be a fast-growing market. So that's actually my summer project is I'm
Mm.
writing. It feels very much like the spell shop where it starts off with like a big, epic battle or whatever. And then you have our protagonist who is the queen seamstress who is given a task and she goes off and finds a really small town and blah, 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 blah. There are honey bears, which are tiny little bears that make honey. They're like a cross between a bee and a bear, and they have like little rings and they zoom all. Anyway, I'm very
Yeah,
excited about that one. But
that's
that one's going to
exciting.
have a romance subplot. And I'm actually, hopefully,
Mhm.
fingers crossed, I'm submitting that to agents so I can actually pursue a traditional publishing contract.
Wonderful. That'd be fantastic.
We'll see.
And that was going to
Otherwise,
be,
coming to Kickstarter near you.
yes, right. Yeah, I was going to ask that because, cozy fantasy has kind of been running in a certain direction for a while. And I feel like things are kind of splitting off in 2 directions where we get the bread knives and brigands and bread knives. The last Travis
Hmm.
Baldree book that I always forget the title of,
Yeah.
which is not really cozy. It's kind of more like a feel good fantasy book, which is
Hmm.
fine. And
Yeah.
then the romantasy kind of is going in the other direction.
Hmm.
And then kind of picking the path you want to follow is kind of based on probably where your interest is on the day that you start the book. But knowing that about the genre, you've made a decision to kind of shift from the cozy mystery into a bit more of the romantasy.
And I think it's not a full shift away from cozy mystery. I think it's just throwing a little bit more spaghetti in the wall because I'm at
Hmm.
a point now in my career where I can try new things like my romantasy that is not cozy, by the way. She definitely an entire room of soldiers in like chapter 3. That's great.
You gotta
And
step
it and
away
it
from the
is
cozy every once in a while, though, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, I belong to this group and they very much believe that I am like just a cozy fantasy writer. And I'm like looking at my
Hmm.
backlist like, uh-uh. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's selling, but that's not all that I write.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and I get sort of offended. I'm like, I'm not just cozy. I have layers.
But
Anyway,
it's interesting to me as a reader and a reader who's had authors that I've read lots of that readers will approach me asking about my cozy books and have no idea that I have 10 other books that nobody's ever bought, even though they're under my Amazon page and my website page. And, like they don't go because they just want the genre that they're reading, or they just assume that that was the first book they've heard of mine, that it's the first book I
yeah,
wrote.
yeah,
But yeah, but I think, that brings me to the point that I asked about earlier, in that it took you a lot of misses before you got the hit that you
yes.
kept you in the game,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started off, I had a space pirate bounty hunter, which weirdly, so I have a very small but very loyal fan base. So I used to do a lot of events. I used to do conventions. I did like 50 conventions in like 4 years.
Oh, wow.
I don't do conventions anymore. I'm already tired. I have 2 kids. I am not going to go stand on my feet for 3 hours and hard sell to people
Mhm.
when I can just pay Amazon to do it for me. No, no.
I hear you.
I will do maybe a 1-day event. I have a 1-day event coming up in March, and I'm like, I mean, it's literally like across the bayou, but I'm not going any further. um,
Yeah.
but those folks love my Space Pirate Bounty Hunter series. Like, they are obsessed with Razia, and they like people that have read my entire backlist are like, yeah, that's my favorite. I'm like,
Hmm.
she's such a bud. I love her, but like, she's such a anyway. And I went from like some like sci-fi, which I only have one, and that's it, to like a very deep, introspective, angsty, anxiety dragon book, to like very like 13 and up YA contemporary fantasy, to like deep, dark, gritty romantasy before romantasy was cool. Actually, I think it's more of a dystopian romantasy, if I was being, which I hear is
Yeah.
on the upswing. So I've got to look at that one and see if I
That's what
can't
they say. Yeah.
do something with that.
I've got some old dystopians lying around that maybe I
I
can
know. I'm like, I got the
recoup some
island. Yeah,
costs from.
I know. I'm gonna have to like rewrite it to like angsty demon hunters, to YA epic fantasy, back to demon hunters for a spinoff series, back to YA fantasy, and then cozy. So I've just got, because when I was doing events, my thought was, let me have something for everybody. Let me have
Mm,
something for the 13-year-old who comes up at a Comic-Con. Let me have something for the horror reader. Let me have, and I don't do horror, but this is as close to horror as I can get. Because I would usually say like, oh my, I like people would walk by and say, oh, are you a reader? What do you like to read? And they would say, oh, I like
yes.
to read blah, 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 a little bit of everything. It's like, well, I have a little bit of
I
everything
have a
here. And
little
then
bit
I
of
would
everything. Yes.
just go through it like, okay, I was like, I'm going to go through them real quick. I got boop, 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 boop. What do you like? And then we would, and that served me really, really well, but because I have such a range. Now, when you pivot that business to the interwebs that likes you to be niched down, doesn't do so well. So
Right.
again, going back to what your goals are, do you want to go to conventions, you want to go to events, you want to go to, Comic-Cons and whatever, you would be better served to have a wider variety of books. If you want to just sit at home in your jammies and do Facebook ads, you might need to niche down a little bit.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So you went from, your 20, and I keep jumping between 26 and 28, but you went from your 20 something books of a mixture of genres. And
mhm.
then to your piece of advice that you opened with, whereas, pick a genre and kind of run with it. So now you have 20 some cozy books and
have
you're
By the end of this year, I will have at least 19, maybe 21
19.
if I can eke 2
Okay.
more Lily books out. So the next 3 Lily books are 43, 44, and 45, and those will be out this summer. So I'm going to have a busy second half of the year. I've got like a release every month from June until November.
Hey, I mean, so you've come up with a schedule that's working and it's obviously
Yes.
sustainable, but once you had that hit, you ran with it, right? I guess talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I decided that because I have ADHD and I struggled previously with writing anything more than 4 books in a series. And that usually boiled down to like, it wasn't an episode. So the Weary Dragon Inn are episodic series, right? So each book has an episode. And so every book has an episode in the larger series. And that makes it a little bit easier to write because you're only focused on that one episode. And you kind of have an ear and an eye for what the overall, whatever is, but you sort of it's a little easier to write. And so I told myself, I think if I did more than 10, I would have drop off because 10 seems like a nice number.
Mhm.
And I had in my mind the big reveal of who Bev really is in the back of my mind. I did not. Have you read the whole series yet?
I have not. I've read the first
Okay.
2.
I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but there's a reveal that is the end of the 10th book that knocks people on their butt in a cozy way.
Okay.
It's a cozy
Yeah.
reveal, but it came to me like I think I was writing the 7th or 8th book. And I remember DMing with my beta reader street team. She's been with me forever, Chelsea. And I was just like, what if I did this? And anyway, the rest is history.
Love
So
it.
I kind of had that idea. So that's
Yeah.
what was really nice about the Weird Dragon Inn is it had an overarching. There is a similar like drip, 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 drip of a thing that's going to happen for the Lily series. It's like but it's not quite as obvious as like Bev getting a vision of her past because obviously that's a really hard thing to replicate in a book, in a book. So
Yes.
it's yeah, but it's gonna be really sweet, and I'm really excited to write the last book. But I figure 10 books is enough, and that was a good because you do get drop off, and you get people that are like, I'm not reading all that, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
especially
it's
because they're short.
intimidating. Yeah.
Yes, they're short. So yeah, and then being able to add on the audiobooks and then the box sets and just whatever format I could put it in, I'm gonna put it in. I haven't put the Weary Dragon in special edition yet because I'm thinking I'm gonna actually ask my newsletter subscribers this month if they think I should do that. Like, are y'all gonna buy this? Because you didn't buy my other one.
I think you should do it.
I just have to figure out if I'm doing an omnibus version of like book 1 through 5 and 5, 6 through 10, or if I'm doing like I have to figure out what I'm gonna do.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just gonna noodle through that
Yeah.
because clearly I'm not writing the next Wretched Curse book this summer, so I'm not gonna do a Kickstarter for that. I'm I'm only
Yes.
mildly salty about it. Like I did get 203 backers, so it wasn't nothing. And I'm grateful for everyone that I had. I just
So,
compared to all the other romanticides that are raising like 60 grand, I'm like,
yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. But I do want to chat about your Kickstarter. But
yes,
I want to your Weary Dragon in series, you have not run a Kickstarter for that yet?
I did. I ran a Kickstarter before the first one was published. So that was a second Kickstarter. So the first Kickstarter I did was back in 2016, so we can't really count that one. And then the second one I did, I had not joined Kickstarter for authors. I knew nothing
Mhm. Yeah.
of what Anthea suggested. Totally just going in blind. And that one I ended up having, I think that one raised like 12 or 13 grand, which gave me enough money to fund the first 3 books in audio.
Right.
And I had found Deborah Baum, who's my narrator, who is perfect. Like she is Bev. She is the perfect
Mm.
Bev, and everybody agrees and everybody loves her. And then what ended up happening is because I started off with the series and the first 3 books in the black, I was able to take any proceeds from those books and kind of put them aside to pay for subsequent audiobooks. So
Yes.
I know I posted this on Instagram a couple weeks ago, my 2025 wrap up. I think I only have like 2 or 3 Bev books that are still in the black because I keep meticulous track of every single cent that I make and I spend to where it came from, which platform, which country, and which series and which book because I'm anal. And I told do
But
not let
that's
me go into my
great, right?
spreadsheet because I will bring it up and be like, look at it. Because I don't know, nobody wants to track data like I do, or they don't have Excel. Because that's the thing is it's an Excel-based macro that sucks in all of the custom reports that you got from Amazon and KDP and Ingram and Shopify and all of those. And it
Mhm.
sucks it in and then it cleans the data and then it puts it into your database so you know exactly how many books in Canada you've sold on Kobo.
Right.
So
I think a lot of authors are big picture people. They're not drilled down into the numbers people, and they have a vague sense of if they're making money or not.
is my
But
account higher than it was yesterday?
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Did I
No,
spend
and
the money I
that's
made on artwork or not? We don't know, but there's money there. So
And that's that's one of those things that one of those habits that I built when I was not making any money, when it was easier, as I only had like 3 sales to input, was understanding the benefit of knowing data. And I come from a
Mhm.
data management background. Like that's my bread and butter. When I worked at the Pentagon as I did IT systems and I did a lot of content management and being able to clean and suck in data. And so I was able to, so I keep meticulous track so that I can say things like, this particular audiobook still owes, is still not $400 in the red. So,
Right.
or this series or whatever. And also, it also makes, for those of you in the US, it makes text time a breeze because I just go boop and then it tells me what I've done in each of my tax categories, and then I just
Yeah,
put it into H&R Block and done.
which is wonderful. It also shows you where your income is coming from each channel, so you
Mhm.
know that if Barnes& and Noble is making a ton of money for you, then maybe you should focus some energy there to help it out a bit more and that sort of thing, because otherwise you're just kinda throwing darts at the wall.
Yes. And honestly, I keep bragging on PJ because I keep thinking he isn't making any money, but then I look at the actual numbers and he's making money. Like
Mhm.
he's doing pretty good. It's kind of similar with Amazon. So my Amazon sales this year are going downhill. And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm
Mhm.
But then when I do my numbers at the end of every month, I'm like, "Holy shit. Like I'm still at the level I was last year. Like where is
Yeah.
that coming from? Like where's this money?" And so then I'm able to go and look and say, "Oh, it's direct sales. Oh, it's income. Oh, it or Audible. Oh, it's Spotify. Whatever it happens to be."
Yeah.
And then I can double down on, hey, maybe I should, spend some money on a Shopify ad to send people to my direct store, which I've been
Mhm.
doing this year and weirdly has been recouping a lot of money that I've lost. So people are not buying. I guess people just aren't buying on
It's
Amazon right now, or maybe
well,
I
it's
don't
so
know.
funny you said that because I was just gonna say when you mentioned, figuring out where each of your channels come from, is the same thing has happened to me this year where I'm looking at my Amazon sales, and for so long, my own like 95% of my sales were Amazon that I look at
Hmm.
a day on Amazon, I'm like, "Oh, I'm not making much money this month," as like compared to previous years, but then at the end of the month when you get your ACX and your Kobo and your everything else, I'm like, "Oh, that's actually kind of where it was. It's just coming from a variety of platforms instead of
Yes.
just one."
Yes.
But if you were not really following where your income was coming from at all, you would probably be disheartened if you were just following the Amazon day to day and not really paying attention to the rest of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And and also I noticed that my City Vales series actually made a decent, not like a great amount of money, but like not zero last year and did actually pretty good. And the ads that I was running on it on Amazon actually did pretty good. There was a pretty good return on investment on that. And so
Mhm.
that sort of gives me pause as to like, okay, let me look into this, let me dig. And then we come down to the issue of time, right? So I have exactly 4 hours every day usually to do what I have to do before my kids get home from preschool. And so I'm having to cram writing 7, 8 books a year and all the admin stuff and all this, that, and the other. And so I would love to just spend all day digging into why that is for this series. But if that number is only like $1,200 for the entire of 2025,
Yeah.
I don't
Then
have time for that.
you don't have time to do that.
No, I don't have
Yeah,
time for that.
yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, so keeping, obviously the focus, because you want to be spending 80% of your time on the things that are making you 80% of your money, because it's really easy to
Hmm.
fall into the trap of spending 80% of your time trying to fix the 20% of things that isn't working, or the
Yes,
80% of things that isn't working, when really you should be spending that 80% of your time on the 20% that is, right?
exactly. And then my thought was, okay, let me see if I can't revitalize my backlist, make a little bit more money with this quest series that I had shelved, and then now I picked back up to write the final book. And so I'm
Hmm.
doing a special edition with all 4 books and doing like an early release on book 4. I don't expect that one to do anything. It's YA fantasy that doesn't do so hot on Kickstarter anyway,
Right.
and I feel like the platform is becoming inundated. So I
Mm,
have much lower expectations for that one. I just would love to, like I said, I keep track of my meticulous stuff. So it's that one's like I think 5,000 in the red still. So if I could recoup enough money to pay that series off, I would be really, really, really happy with that Kickstarter. And that's, whatever that happens to be. And so
yeah.
that was my thought is let me focus on my backlist titles and try to get some of these out of the red and into the black and let my Weary
Hmm.
Dragon Inn series just do what it does and not, and just
Right.
continue to pay my bills. Because the Kickstarter is a lot of work, and
Yes.
I obviously don't have any problem with people knowing about the Weary Dragon Inn series, but I do have a problem with people seeing my other series. So that was kind of my
Okay.
thought behind it.
Yes.
Is that perhaps should I just go ahead and go with the Weary Dragon and Kickstarter? Maybe. Maybe I'll do it at the 5 year. I don't know.
So is there any, and I'm gonna ask selfishly because I'm in the exact same situation with my first series with the exact
Mhm,
same plan. I'm 3
mhm,
books in, have not broken even on the series. My idea or my intention is to, because I do want to finish it. It's, 3 books and it was supposed to be 6. I'm gonna, cap it at 4 which is fine. But I was going to rebrand it as fantasy, kind of pull out the dystopia part of the description and do a Kickstarter for an omnibus with the exact same, or a box set with the exact same intention. Maybe I'll break even on this thing at the end of the day. So I guess my question is, in running this last Kickstarter that you did for the Romantasy book, do you think that is, first of all, are you still kind of sold on that being an idea for your backlist to revitalize it? And if so, what did you learn from this last Kickstarter that you would do differently now?
I would say, the first thing I would say is that if you go into it, so I made, the biggest mistake I made on this Kickstarter was I did a print run. And I knew I shouldn't have done a print run because I never, ever sell special editions for any Kickstarter, which is weird, I know, for that platform, but that's just what I have found.
How it's done.
And so I have 300 books arriving to my doorstep from China, and I have sold 70 of them. So I will have 230-ish books sitting in my office staring at me for the next foreseeable future. And if I did events, which I might have to start because I don't want these to sit in my office, then, it wouldn't be an issue. But like for my business model, for the things that I do, having 220 books sitting in my office is not my idea of a good time. So if you go into it with much lowered expectations, like, okay, I know I'm going to get a lot of digital backers, which if you don't have a print run and all you're trying to do is just recoup money, great. Love digital. Digital is great because I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay for anything. I just send you the ebook. And so that was the biggie for me. I also had some issues with the printer. I'm used to Book Vault where I can just upload my special edition files and they just print whatever I say. Whereas my special was like, well, there's text. And I'm like, yes, just put the foil over the text. We can't do that. Why not? Why not? Just do it. Just do it. Anyway, we went back and forth for like 3 nights. So I had to go back to my cover designer and get a brand new cover without the text on it, which was, anyway. And that, so I also have the benefit of having a system in place for everything that I do. And I don't necessarily think it's worthwhile for me to deviate from that system because that's what everybody else is doing. Which I have a tendency to do. I'm like, oh, let me do a print run. Let me go, because, the nice thing about print runs is that they're $12, $13 a pop versus Book Vault, which is like 70, $60, $75 a pop. But, then of course you're sitting with them. So, and they're paid for, and that's great. But, so maybe I'll turn them into advanced review copies, I guess. I don't want to have to work this hard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got to pivot. Be willing to pivot, I guess, as when things don't kind of go as you had hoped. But I think what it does speak to is that you're willing to try new things, and even still at this point of the game, not everything that you touch turns into gold, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
and I think
you're willing to pivot and keep going, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of my trajectory because I know that there are some authors, and I'm thinking of one in particular, who gives a lot of advice, and I love that for her. But literally the first book she had out the gate took off. It was like, it came out at the right time. It got picked up. It, blah, 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 blah. Her first book went gangbusters. And I'm like, you are not qualified to give advice. I'm so sorry. You need to have at least 5 failures. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's me being able to say that and be able to look and say, hey, I wrote all of this stuff, all of this objectively good stuff that because it didn't hit the zeitgeist exactly right, doesn't sell. And so I can say to somebody who's struggling, who has a good product, and that's the big thing is you need to make sure you have a good product, good cover, good editing. You're hitting the genre conventions. Your sales page on Amazon looks fine. Make sure it's not pixelated. Because usually if somebody's complaining about their sales, the very first thing I do is I go look at their Amazon page and I can pinpoint exactly why they're having low sales.
Covers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
covers.
you.
Yes.
Because I love this conversation. I was just like, so you posted on Threads in that vein of what you were just talking about. The most benign comment about you have to have a nice cover, or you said, I think pretty much exactly what you just said is that someone complains that they're not selling, you go to their Amazon page and they've made their cover in Photoshop or MS Paint and are wondering why their PowerPoint presentation-esque cover is not selling. And that was apparently a controversial thing to say.
Apparently, I am very spicy on Threads. No, and I think what constitutes a good cover isn't necessarily, is it pretty art either. So somebody else
No,
in that
no, not
thread had
necessarily. Right.
posted that, oh, people love my cover. And I went to go look at her cover and I have no friggin' idea what genre her books are. Like they were like pencil art or something. And I was like, I mean,
Yeah.
does
And you
this
can,
look
but
like what else is selling in your genre? I
yeah,
don't think
but to
so.
that point though, you could go hire the best, like you could go hire Jeff Brown or some
Mm-hmm.
amazing fantasy illustrator to draw you the best looking picture, but if what's inside is sci-fi or something,
Yeah.
not, or it's romantasy and you have an
Yeah.
epic fantasy cover, people are
Yeah.
not going to be into it. So,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And you need to have something, and I think another thread in that comment section had talked about how, oh, I just go to the bookstore. And I'm like, we're not talking about bookstores, friend, because books in the bookstore have the benefit of the traditional publisher marketing apparatus behind them that put that book in that bookstore, and they have the distribution that put that book in that bookstore. So that book has been, vetted and blah, 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 blah. We're talking about Amazon. We're talking about the only thing that somebody sees when they search cozy fantasy books is your cover and your title and your name and your reviews, and that's it. And so that needs to be eye-catching and interest. So I actually had an alternate cover for Drinks and Singles. I don't know if you remember that. That
I
it
have
was,
only seen it on Goodreads because Goodreads is forever
yes,
and never changes
whatever.
your cover. Yeah.
And I had gone for like a D&D kind of style, like, okay, we're going to do this, that, and the other. And it just didn't do. So then I just got into Photoshop because I, used to do this stuff for a living once upon a time. And I got into Photoshop and I just moved clip art around until something looked decent. And I was like, that looks pretty good. And selfishly, I was like, oh my God, all I have to do is like tweak the colors every time I have a new book and change the title and the number. And I don't have
Which is
to
very
like,
nice for a 10-book series, right?
yeah, save me a shit ton of money, let me tell you. Because I did the same for PJ and I did the same for Lily. And it's kind of, it's working at the moment.
Hmm.
I did not do that for my romantasy, but I ended up finding a pre-made that I think worked out
Nice.
really well. And then
Yeah.
for that one, I ended up commissioning some bonkers art, none of which converted the romantasy to crowd, but I still love it, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that goes to your again, back to your original point where knowing your
Hmm.
genre is important because
Yes.
the cover is the first, like, as much as we're all told, don't judge a book by the cover. If you're trying to sell books, people see 100 books a day if they're looking at books. You have to stand out, right? Like that's
Yes.
just the way it is.
Yes.
It might be the best book
Absolutely.
ever inside, but if no one picks it up to find that out,
Yeah.
then
And
you're
you
not selling
also,
books, right?
and going back to what your package looks like, you want your cover to be spot on. You want your description to be spot on. You want your metadata keywords that Amazon uses to put your book in various whatever needs to be spot on. Your genres need to be spot on in the categories that you select for Amazon, which thank God there's now a cozy fantasy category. Huzzah! We're all getting out of gas lamp.
Yes, which is fantastic.
I know. I was on a panel with AK Lancaster, I think her name. AJ. Anyway, she writes how to date a nameless fae or something like that. Something
Oh,
nameless
okay.
fae. Anyway,
Yeah.
she writes legitimate gaslamp fantasy, and she was like, I need
Hmm.
all you cozy fantasy people to get out of my genre.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, okay, we're leaving. We're going. We're leaving. We're going our own. But yeah, it's all of the things need to be exactly right and exactly perfect for the genre. And still, you might not be successful because it's not what's selling right now. And so my story with my YA fantasy is like, it started off with, I was doing pretty good, and then TikTok blew up and everybody started wanting YA stories with penises in it. And thus romantasy got started and everybody stopped reading YA. And you can actually watch my royalties just nosedive right around the beginning of the pandemic because as TikTok started taking off and people were like, oh, I can have all of this angst and feeling and world building and beauty and action adventure. And also they can fuck. Yes. Like, let's do that. Sorry if that one was
Yeah.
too much
And the
for your
trend, and
podcast.
no, it's the trend. No, the trend shifted, right? So
Yes.
that's really hard to fault. You can't necessarily do anything about that
No,
other
you
than
can't.
be willing to pivot what you're working on, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And that really, I mean, that's what I did with drinks is, and also being able to, understand that you can always come back to a series, but,
Hmm.
being able to hit the zeitgeist might not
Might not
you might miss
always
your chance.
align. The stars might not align. Yeah.
Yes, you may want to hop on that. I know yeah, like I said, like right now the biggest thing I'm seeing that might be building up is like dystopian romantasy, and then kind of within cozy fantasy the shift towards more romantic stories in the cozy fantasy space.
Hmm.
I have a couple friends that are kind of in that arena that seem to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's interesting, the dystopian revival, if you will.
Yes.
It's but
I mean, is it?
no, it's not. You know what? It actually is, because really, do I want to read more dystopia? I already live in
I know.
one.
I've got my Read Banned Books shirt on, so I figure not that you can see it, but hashtag for
But
the
still,
cause.
the thought is there, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch before we wrap up on visibility, and how do you approach, because I mean, there's a billion people out there, and with the rise of AI, there's a billion not people trying to compete with us with their, whatever. But what's your approach to getting your books visible so that people know you exist, and how have you found that? What, I guess, two parts. What is your approach, and what has worked best for you?
I think my approach is I focus a lot on paid advertising. And I know there are a lot of people that swear off paid ads and they prefer to do organic stuff on social media. And that's fine for them because they have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. I do one batch creation at the beginning of the month for the entire month and post reels, captions, all of that. And that is all I can do. And that is for one account. It's my cozies. I don't know if you noticed my new brand, but I have a brand now. Well, I had a brand before, but now I'm actually really using it. And so I focus on Amazon ads because that's where the majority of the readers are. And I know people have issues with Amazon. It is still 60-70% of the market. Like, sorry, that's the reality. Wish it were different, but it isn't. And so I focus on Amazon ads. I tend to do like auto ads and category ads, and then start picking out keywords and things like that that are selling from those. So it's a very sort of
Building on top of each other kind of thing.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm an author. I have lots of words.
I know the
And I
words.
also, yes, I know the words. I have to keep thesaurus.com up when I'm writing this latest Lily book. And then the other thing is Facebook ads, which I've gotten pretty good at. I mean, they definitely try to shove AI down your throat. I turn all of that off. And then I focus I'm going to butcher his last name, Dave Gogren.
Dave
Gogren?
Gagne.
He's
Yep.
Irish. Yes, he is so good. I would recommend anybody that's even halfway interested in learning anything about ads to go check out his website. He's got just all kinds of free stuff, and he's
For
always
free.
right
Yeah.
for
And
free.
not to be confused, don't confuse him with David Goggins, because that is very different. And when people first
Yes.
started talking to me about David Goggin, I'm like, David Goggins, like the motivational coach that just screams at you.
Yes, no, he
Yes,
is
David
really,
Gogren.
really, really
Yeah.
good. Yes, he just released a new thing about Facebook ads that was really helpful for like the new whatever. And so so those are my two big things. Obviously I do have social media. So because I'm pursuing, God, why can't I say that word? Pursuing traditional publication, I am working on growing my socials, not necessarily to make more sales, but just so that I have a nice bigger footprint that I can show off to a traditional publisher. So that's why I really started niching down on my Instagram and my Facebook, just to kind of show, hey, I'm giving up on TikTok because I'm in the US and I don't, whatever, that's too much work.
Yeah.
And that's really, and then focusing on, I do have a street team. I don't do really well with them. I love them to death, but I'm not really good at like getting them to do anything. It's more just me in there like posting snippets that I want them to like because
Yeah.
I need the dopamine hit. I need someone to know what I'm writing and to see this cute little scene and to star it. Like that's what my street team is for, is just to make me feel good
Just
as a
dopamine.
writer.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, just dopamine. That's all they're good for. No, they're fantastic, and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to like the 5 of them that are there. But I also, let's see, visibility. There's something to be said for people that, and this is not something you can control, which really sucks, but the Cozy Fantasy Reddit has been so loving to me. I'm not allowed to post there because every time I post there, they delete my thing. Like, it's not promo. I'm like, but they've been, the readers there always recommend Drinks and Singles for everything. And I don't know who I made happy there, but I have made several people happy, and they always recommend my books, and that sells more books than anything else. And I think that has made some of the difference for me in terms of what worked and what didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's about it. I think it's just Facebook and Amazon ads and just being an asshole on Threads.
Because that is what the
I
threads wants, apparently.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Well, I ended up I blocked threads on my phone, and I block threads. I only get like an hour of threads a day and like social media because tend to get a little too addicted, and then I start snapping at my kids because Karen's got a bad take, and so I've got to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a blocker app now for my socials on my phone and on my computer because I'm like, you know what? There's too much in the world that can suck you down a rabbit hole right now, and I'm just like, you know
Yes.
what? I have other things I need to get done than
Yeah, and
getting upset
once
at
I
strangers.
lock into work time, I'm sucked into work time. I get 5 minutes between my sprints to write or to dork around, and there's a timer on that. So it's like I start a
Yeah.
10-minute sprint and then it's over. I immediately start another sprint to start in 5 minutes. And so I got 5 minutes to dork around, and I get the bing, and then I go back to work. And so that helps keep me from getting sucked into too much stuff. And then
Hmm.
really the only social media I have is on my computer, which is in my office, which I don't let my kids in because they are terrors and they will destroy everything. They're
That's too funny.
almost 3, and they'll be 5 later this year. So they're young, but
Right.
they're menaces. God love them.
Well, it's so much fun. I want to dig a little bit on your ads
Yes.
because the question I have on your Amazon ads in particular, do you think that you need a long running series to make Amazon ads profitable?
I think it's better to have more than one book. And the thing with Amazon ads is that the data itself is not always accurate. So I think Dave, oh no, what's his name? No, Brian Cohen. There's too many gurus out there.
There are.
Brian Cohen, I really like Brian. I know there's some controversy. People don't like his stuff. They think it's too whatever. But Brian Cohen's stuff has worked for me. And his thought is that I think it's like 10% of the data that you see on your dashboard is accurate. So, like, if
Really?
you have 1 click, you really have, I don't know, 10 clicks, for example,
Really? Interesting.
something like that. Yeah. And so, what he really recommends is looking like at your Amazon as your KDP and at your Amazon ads, which is kind of hard to do when you're running also Facebook ads to the exact same page.
Right.
But I digress. You can get, so if you like Lily right now, weirdly, has not gotten any sales from Amazon ads in like the past week, which is kind of odd for me. And so that means I'm going to go look at my product page. I'm going to make sure everything looks like it should, and that's enticing people to buy, and that the description doesn't need updating, whatever. And so that's, the thing is it's hard to answer that because I have so many products related to my shorter cozy series, right? So you've got the ebook, you've got the paperback, you've got the audiobook, you've got the hardcover, you've got the bundle ebook, you've got the bundle audiobook. And so all of those together, those sales, kind of make up for the fact that there's only 3 books. Like there's 3 actual books in the series so far.
Right.
I don't know if that's a good answer for you or not, but
Yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, because it's hard, because you're right, it is hard to tell. So
yes.
I guess, I guess my question is more for people if they have 1 or 2 books in a series and they're trying to run Amazon ads and they're like, yeah, Amazon's spending my money, but I'm not really seeing the return I want to see on them.
What I would say is that if Amazon is spending too much of your money, you need to lower your cost per click.
Cost per click.
Um, I think Brian Cohen recommends 39 cents across the board, unless you have data that this thing works. So that means that, like, for your auto ad, you create an ad and then you set your CPC at 39 cents. And that does mean that you're going to be lower. And then the other thing to consider is that, everybody always talks about Amazon A10, blah, 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 blah. There is no Amazon A10, by the way. There's no like mysterious new algorithm or whatever. It's the same as it's always been. But what it
Right.
does do is it likes when people come from outside of Amazon to go to your page and then they buy. So if you are sending someone from Facebook to Amazon and they buy, Amazon's gonna like your book more. They're gonna push your book to a little bit more. It's almost like it is very much a snowball effect, which sucks because you have to get the snowball going somehow.
Yeah.
But once the snowball's going, things tend to, work well. So, I would say if somebody is spending too much money on Amazon, the first thing I would do is, honestly, the first thing I would do is shut off all the ads. I would start with an auto ad at 39 cents. Let that run for a month. You should not be spending if it's 39 cents and then you bid down, always bid down. Don't bid up. Well, you can bid up, but starting out, always bid down. And then, because that way you'll get to 100 clicks. And when you get to 100 clicks, then you can look at your data and see what's clicking on those data, what search terms were used. Now, unfortunately for me, whenever I go and look at my search terms, It's all drinks and sinkholes. Where are we driving in? S. Usher Evans, blah, 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 blah. So I'm basically advertising to the people that were looking for my books anyways. Great. Love that. Thanks.
Can
That's
you
really
not
helpful to make new ads.
Right, yeah. Are you able, sorry,
No, go for it.
and I'm just wondering, are you able to put your own name as a negative
Yes.
keyword? Do you
Um,
want to?
you
Is there a reason why you wouldn't want to do that?
I wouldn't just because it is sort of playing defense. So, like, you could post an ad and you could take all of my name and all of my series and, outbid me basically
Gotcha.
for my own books. And so then that drops my book down to the actual search results instead of the sponsored ones.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of like,
Don't
yeah, I've
do
done a lot
that.
of Google. Yeah, I've done a lot of Google ads, and it's kind of the same idea. You want your company name in there so that other people aren't ranking for your company ahead of you. Gotcha. Makes
Yes,
sense.
it's just defensive advertising, they call it. And so what I would do if someone's spending too much, I would turn off all the ads. I would start an auto ad at 39 cents, bids down only, let it run for a month, get 400 clicks, whichever comes first, and just see what you got. The other thing I would do, and this is all from Brian Cohen's, I don't think he does free ones anymore, but this is just kind of like what he says to start with. I would also just triple check your keywords and your metadata in your description to make sure that they are on point and that they are you can go to like, what is it, incognito mode and go to Amazon and start typing in search terms that would relate to your book and then see what comes up and then take those search terms. You can use a tool like Publisher Rocket as well to like find keywords and key phrases that you want to
Yes.
put in your keyword slots, like those 7 keyword slots on Amazon. Make sure those are
Sponsor of the
good.
podcast, Publisher Rocket.
I love Publisher Rocket. I don't think I use it correctly, but I get data out of it and I like it when I'm
There's
doing ads.
so much you can do with it that I use it, but probably not to the full extent of what it is capable
Yeah.
of. But it is a
Yeah.
great tool.
It's wonderful. I really like shout out Publisher Rocket.
Listen, since we're talking about it, I'm going to jump in and interrupt our interview for just a minute to talk about today's sponsor. Yes, Publisher Rocket. Yes, you heard us talking about how wonderful it is. And we're not joking. Both Sasha and I have been using Publisher Rocket for years to analyze our competitors, figure out our categories, run more effective Amazon ads, and rank organically on Amazon. I'm serious when I say that Publisher Rocket will save you hours of research so that you can focus on your writing instead of just trying to guess the market. To learn more, head to www.pintandportal/deals, help support the show, and help accelerate your author business.
So yeah, that would be what I would recommend. And then maybe if you're feeling fancy, you could start some category ads based on the categories your book is currently in and make sure you do them for both the book category and the Kindle category. And again, 39 cents, bid down, don't turn anything else on. Just let it run, let Amazon figure out where your book is and decide what's going on. And then if you're looking at your data and it's a bunch of random stuff that has nothing to do with your book, you know you have a problem somewhere on your product page, somewhere with your metadata, somewhere, and then you can,
Right.
go from there. That was very
Yeah.
technical, sorry.
No, that's good. That's, what I kind of want from this. And I kind of, it's hard to get both a general idea for writers of what they might find useful, but also balance that with a little bit of detail so that people can walk away with something they can action. And I think the most difficult thing when you start to get into the details like that is that what works for one author does not work for all authors. So you kind of have to try different strategies, because the episode that will have aired the week prior to this, I had Heather Carson on talking about her Amazon ad strategy, and
Yeah.
she does almost the exact opposite. But she's also writing shifter romance. So she targets very specific books that are high selling, but spends a lot more on it because it's a hungry genre, right? So you kind of
Yes.
have to know your genre and what strategy you can use within your genre.
Yes, and that would actually be I think that's a more advanced tactic. So I do have a
Mm-hmm.
very well-performing ASIN ad that targets the top hitters in cozy fantasy. And also, you can only do that in a genre that has heavy hitters. Like if you said epic fantasy, that's kind of that's a big genre. You're going to have a lot of clicks and it's very competitive. So if you have a series, and the thing is that with the auto ads and the category ads, if you have a book that you know is selling and you're making money and you want to make more money, you can to be a little bit more risky with your money. If you are just starting out, you have 1 to 2 books, start with getting a baseline of data to understand that my book is being categorized correctly, it's being shown to the right people, and that my product page is effective. And then you can move up to the next level where you're targeting more specific things. You're maybe spending more than 39 cents, whatever. Yeah, I think, I mean, and I absolutely think, I love Heather Carson, by the way. She's a gem. I think I
Oh,
only know her
yes.
on the interwebs, though.
Yeah, we met through, we used to both write Dystopia, and we kind of met
Hmm.
in that world through both Facebook and a conference in Vegas. Yeah, it's been wonderful to see her career trajectory, because I've seen it
Yes.
from before what she's doing now to, I mean, the last couple of years she's just exploded. So it's been fantastic to see for her.
It's always fun when you know people win. And I've been
Hmm.
around long enough to have been around a long time and to have seen people work really, really hard to get to a certain point. And I'm happy that I'm one of those people now that have
Yes,
sort of become somewhat known in the cozy fantasy genre. And it's just fun to like actually be along for the ride in that. And
for
I
sure.
like to cheer on my friends when they start doing really well.
100%. And especially, when someone has written 28 books or 26 books or 13 books or whatever that number is that isn't one and hasn't given up,
Mhm.
I mean, that's just, for me, that's encouraging. For other people, that might be deflating because they don't, that maybe they don't have that sort of stamina to wait that long, because it is not a cheap, you know,
No,
enterprise to be
no.
in either, right? So it might be
No, and all of those
demoralizing,
had
but
covers and editors and ad spend and all of the
yeah,
things, and I like I said at the beginning, I've been very privileged that I've been able to float myself doing whatever and with friends and family and whatever, and I could claim maternity leave for a little bit of that, but, I don't know if
yeah.
my husband agrees with that.
Yeah, and I'm working full time to make this happen as well, because so I'm not able to write 7 books a year. So, I'm hoping that book it's earlier, but you never know what book is going to be the one that does it, right? So that's
Yeah,
why, if this is what I always say is that if this is something that you want to do, it is there is a cost to it, but you can find ways to make it work, or make it, continue
without
on, right?
without using AI. So,
Without using
that's it.
AI. Agreed.
Without using AI.
Because contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get an on genre cover. You
Yeah.
made your own.
Yeah.
Case in point,
Well,
you made your own.
I would always caution people because people are like, "Oh, I can make my own." I'm like, "I have extensive experience in Photoshop, in graphic design, like my undergraduate's in video production. I know how to do
Yes,
things." And so I am not putting out something that is subpar and that is not I want my books to be able to stand next to Sarah J. Maas and Travis Baltry and everybody else and look like they belong there.
yeah,
But to your point, though, Covers is an amazing service. They're based out of Ukraine, and you can
yes,
get a bang-in cover for $35 that will at least get you closer to a cover that would be, that would put you into a point where you can make a lot of money.
100%.
Yeah.
And I've used their sister company, Mibble Art, for
Yes.
almost all my books, and I know
Really?
they get some hate. They get some hate online. Yeah, I mean, my cozies are them. It's their illustrated tier, but they have lower
Yeah.
tiers as well.
Yeah.
My first books were all Mibble Art. Only my Fractured Orbit series, my sci-fi, wasn't them. But their terms of service do say that they do not use AI as a
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to find stock images that are exclusively not AI. So I give them a bit of grace for that they might slip in without them knowing, because they're not always marked, and it's not
Yeah.
always easy to tell. But I mean, I do trust that their intention is to not. So I continue to use them. They're illustrated. I mean, the ones my cozies are fully illustrated, so I'm not
Yeah.
definitely not worried about it. But
Yeah.
but there are options out there. Even their illustrated covers are incredibly well priced compared to what some illustrators are. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you really, I mean, I lucked out. And especially, you can also get some really nice pre-made covers too.
yes,
Arts Kendare is the one that did Curse of the Wretched, and I just found it, and I was like, "Ooh, roses, mirror, yes, that's it. That's Beauty and the Beast
yeah,
right there. Like, done."
yeah. There
Um,
are options out there. Yeah, but I guess don't give up.
don't give up, but also, don't just keep throwing good money after bad. And if something isn't working, it's okay to pivot and keep trying until something does.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is a perfect note to end our conversation, I think. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be sure to link all of your links in the show notes below, and it's wonderful to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. I'll see you
Yeah,
out
you're so
there
welcome.
on
You
Threads.
bet. We will see you on Threads.